This video and all of its contents, including any opinions expressed by the narrator, are strictly for entertainment purposes only and is not intended in any way as a substitute for professional services and consultation from a licensed therapist, doctor, attorney, or other licensed professional service provider. Each person must make their own life decisions, and those decisions are theirs. Welcome back to Find Your Alpha, a channel that's listened to by men and traditional women all over the planet. Today we are back at you with another great video story, and you can see the title right on your screen. Cheating girlfriend demoted to an occasional hookup partner. Oh no, let's get into this story and find out what it's all about. And this is the original post. And she starts out and she says, I'm writing this to see if my current relationship is worth holding on to. I want to start by saying that I accept full responsibility for what has happened in my life as it pertains to my boyfriend. I'm not trying to pass blame, only looking for advice from people other than my friends and family. I've created this new account and will be using fake names to keep things confidential. I'm 23, Zoe is her name, and my boyfriend is 23 as well, Zeke. Until recently, we were exclusive, and I still am with him. But for the past couple months, he's been dating other people. We met at college prior to the start of my junior year, his senior year. We clicked right away and started dating immediately. Zeke lived in the dorms while I lived off campus with two roommates who I'll be referring to as Dina and Crystal. I met my roommates after Dina posted an ad in our school newspaper looking for two female roommates to share a 3-bedroom apartment. I answered the ad, we met up, hit it off, and moved in together at the start of my junior year. We got along pretty well, even though we are so very different. Dina and Crystal are free spirits in every way, and she has that underline, while I was far more reserved, very reserved actually. At first their behavior concerned me, but over time I found them both to have good hearts and to be fun to be around. I must admit though, I never fully accepted their lifestyles, and as such never fully trusted them. This wasn't a big deal during my junior year, as Zeke was still in school, and he and I spent nearly every day together after school. We had a daily routine of studying, eating together, and being intimate. It was wonderful, and that year is probably going to go down as the best year in my life. After Zeke graduated, he landed a good job and moved to a city located about 90 minutes from our college. During this time, I traveled to his place every Friday evening and stayed with him until Monday morning, then drove back to school. During the week, I spent most of my time studying as I was taking extra classes in order to graduate on time. My roommates were studying too, so we didn't hang out much except for Thursday evenings, which is kind of a big party night at our school. Well, I think it's a big party night at most colleges. We'd normally go out and eat somewhere and then go to a bar after and hang out and talk to people. I normally would stay for an hour or so and then head back to the apartment as I had an 8 a.m. class on Friday mornings. Dina and Crystal didn't have classes on Friday and would often stay out well after midnight or stay out all night. Neither of them had a steady boyfriend, so it was not uncommon for them to bring guys back to the apartment on Thursday and over the weekend. I didn't care as long as they were quiet and stayed in their bedrooms. This was a rule we all agreed to, and they didn't violate it, though I could hear faint noises from their rooms if I didn't wear earplugs, which I often had to do. Both Dina and Crystal had multiple guys who I guess you would classify as friends with benefits. Now, when I say multiple, I'm not talking dozens. Dina had three semi regular guys she'd bring over, and Crystal had two. And what I say to that is, blah! I mean, these women being with multiple guys at the same time. I'm not saying, hey, they're all hooking up together, but they're seeing this Dina's seeing three different guys and this Crystal is seeing two. That is just unsanitary and gross. She goes on and says they also had one guy who I'll call Glenn that they shared between them. Not at the same time, but they both shared this guy individually. They knew it and were cool with it. Oh boy. You know what I got to say about these two women? I mean, they are STD factories. These kind of women, even though they may seem tempting because, they're going to give you that good stuff, I recommend just totally staying away from women like that because you don't want to go near them unless you have a full body hazmat suit on. I mean, it's just too dangerous. Glenn was a junior and plays on the hockey team. He's not at all smart. In fact, he's a terrible student. But the athletic department works it out so he somehow passes his classes. So this guy probably got a scholarship, I'm guessing, for hockey or some other sport. And he's a terrible student, so they're just passing him along so that he gets to play hockey there. That's what I'm reading from this. She goes on and says Glenn is not good looking in any sense, but he's tall and has an unnaturally muscular body. He's also known for having an attribute that is much more significant than other members of his gender. She says, I'm keeping things PG here. Dina and Crystal have been with Glenn multiple times. Now listen to this. She says he basically has an open invitation to drop by whenever he wants. And if one of them is available, they will sleep with him. Both Dina and Crystal told me several times that he has expressed an interest in being with me too, though he never approached me. I of course rejected this and told them I was really offended by his suggestion. This brings me to what happened in May. It was a Friday, the school year had ended, and it was our last night together as roommates. We made it through college. To celebrate, Dina, Crystal, and I made plans to have dinner and a little fun that night. I told Zeke all about it, and he was fine with everything as he trusted me completely. I texted him all night letting him know what I was doing. Zeke and I had plans for a special celebration of our own Saturday night when I got to his place. Now back to Friday. We took an Uber to the restaurant, and then from the restaurant we went to a campus bar where a lot of our friends were present. We stayed there until the bar closed, then Ubered back to the apartment. Though I normally don't drink, that night I did, and way too much. I started with a banana daiquiri, but don't remember all the other things I drank except for the flute of champagne we all had to toast our graduation. I'd never been drunk before and didn't realize how much alcohol can affect your judgment. So you can already see she's pointing out what I'm about to do. It's probably because I was drunk. When we got back to the apartment, Dina, Crystal, and I sat in the living room and talked until their guys got there. When they did, they each went into their bedrooms. I was left all alone in the living room. I was so out of it that I flipped on the TV and decided just to curl up on the couch with a blanket and sleep there. I had just dozed off when there was a knock at the door. I went to answer and saw it was Glenn. Here comes Glenn with his big unit. I let him in and told him that Dina and Crystal were already in bed. He started towards Dina's room, but I told him that they both were already with someone. He said bummer and came into the living room and sat right down on the couch where I had been laying. He started talking to me about my plans after school and a bunch of other stuff. After about 30 minutes of talking, He kissed me. So she must have been sitting right beside him on the couch. Now, if he went and sat on that couch, why didn't she go sit somewhere else, on a chair or somewhere? I resisted and explained my situation with Zeke. Glenn apologized, but said he wanted me desperately. I told him no, I was exclusive with my boyfriend. Do you think she really told him that? I wish I could say that's where things ended, but they didn't. We talked more, and then he started kissing me again, and this time I kissed him back. We didn't have S, but I found out later that I apparently did do something to him that night. I fell asleep on the couch, and Glenn left sometime during the night. In the morning, I woke up with a headache, and the previous night was all a blur. Dina and Crystal were still in bed, and their guys were gone. I made coffee, and the smell woke them up. We started talking and laughing about last night. Then Crystal asked me how I liked being with Glenn. I didn't remember him being there, so I questioned what she meant. Now she says right here, I don't remember him being there, but then she just told us that she remembers kissing him and him kissing her first. So get your story straight. Crystal said Stacy, the guy she spent the night with, said she saw me giving Glenn blank, and you know what that means, she was giving him. I told her that wasn't true and said I just fell asleep on the couch. Crystal said, "Oh, no, you didn't." She said Stacy came back in her bedroom after using the bathroom and told her what I was doing. She said they both crept back out and watched me. At this point, I lost it and screamed at Crystal, asking her why didn't she stop me. She said it was none of their business and that I was clearly enjoying myself. I told her I wasn't enjoying myself, as I didn't even remember it. Crystal told me I was fully aware and was loving it. I started crying and begged them not to tell Zeke about this if they ever saw him again. They told me not to worry and they had my back. After this, I went in to take a shower and cried my eyes out, regretting what I'd apparently done. When I got out, I called and talked to Zeke. He stayed on the phone with me while I packed up my stuff. Then Dina, Crystal, and I left the apartment at the same time and decided to grab lunch before leaving town. About an hour later, as the three of us were sitting at an outside table, I got a call from Zeke. He asked me if I was somewhere where I could access my phone. I said yes. He said he had something he wanted to send me. I asked him what it was, and he said, "You'll see." He said to take a look at it and call him back to discuss it. I said okay and waited and waited. Finally, after we had all finished eating, I got a ping on my phone. I glanced at the message and couldn't believe what I saw. It was a picture of Glenn sitting on the couch without clothes, with me kneeling in front of him. I was destroyed and just started crying. I didn't say anything to Dina and Crystal and just got up and ran into the ladies' room. They ran after me and found me crying in one of the stalls. I started screaming at Crystal, asking her how she could do something like this to me. She asked what? I told her about this picture. She swore she hadn't taken the picture and hadn't told anyone about me and Glenn. We then figured that it must have been Stacy, but wondered how he found Zeke and why he would do this. Crystal said she told Stacy I was in a relationship but nothing more. We figured he must have found Zeke on Facebook or Instagram. Crystal said she didn't see him take the picture and said he must have taken it before coming back into the room. She said Stacy hates Glenn, so that might be why he did it. She said he probably did this to try to get back at Glenn somehow. I asked why would Stacy do this to me? I'm the only injured party as a result of this whole thing. So she's saying she's the only injured party, not her boyfriend who she just cheated on the previous night, but just she is the only injured party. They stayed in the restroom with me while I cleaned up and settled down. We then went back out and talked for another hour as they helped me contemplate what I was going to tell Zeke when I called him back. So she's saying, we all were, discussing how I could spin this story and get out of this mess I'm in. Eventually, I got back to my car and called Zeke. He answered and said, hey. Initially, he didn't seem upset at all. I told him I was so sorry about the picture and for what I had done. I explained that I was drunk and couldn't handle it. I then told him that I honestly didn't remember doing anything with that guy in the pic. Zeke told me I looked wide awake and very enthusiastic in the picture. I started crying and kept telling him I didn't remember. He said okay and didn't say anything else, but I could tell he was getting emotional as his voice cracked. I told him I was going to start driving his way, and he told me not to. I asked why, and he said, you know why. He then said he was breaking up with me. I pulled over and begged him not to do this. I asked him to let me come to his place and explain everything. He said, what else is there to say? I told him I had a lot to say. With that, he said, thanks for all the good times we had. Good luck, and hung up. I called him back and he answered. I asked him to just talk to me, and he again said there was nothing more to say, and for me not to drive to his place because he was leaving for the rest of the weekend. I asked where he was going and he wouldn't tell me. I hung up and drove to his place anyway. When I got to his apartment, he wasn't there and didn't respond to my calls and messages. I waited in my car outside his apartment for over 2 hours before finally giving up and driving to my parents' house an hour away. On my way, I called my mom and told her what I'd done. So you told your mother everything? Oh boy. She screamed and yelled at me as I drove, and I cried the entire way home. She called me a bunch of names and said she was ashamed of me. Mom did, however, agree not to tell anyone about this, including my dad, as he would never forgive me or see me the same way again. We decided to tell him Zeke and I just grew apart and broke up. That Saturday will go down as the worst day in my life. After I got to my parents' house, I talked to my mom for a while and then went up to my room and called Zeke. I explained to him that even though I was in that position in the picture, I didn't think I actually did anything. Oh, come on. He interrupted me and asked me to stop lying, saying that he also had a 50-second video of me enthusiastically performing the act on Glenn. So she's totally busted here. I was so upset I just hung up on Zeke and let out a scream of desperation. My mom heard me and came running up the stairs as she thought I had done something to myself. I explained to her that I had just talked to Zeke and there was a video of me. My mom said we need to report this to the police as this is a crime. I told her I didn't want to as I didn't want the attention or embarrassment. I then decided to call Crystal and get Stacy's number. I called him multiple times and left him messages to call me back, but he didn't. Finally, I had enough and sent him a text and said I was going to report what he did to the police if he didn't call me back in the next hour. 5 minutes later, he called me back and started apologizing. I asked him why he did this to me and told him he ruined my life. He said he did it because he hated Glenn and also he felt that my boyfriend should know. I told him what he did was terrible and he could have just told my boyfriend without taking the picture and video. I asked him who he shared the media with, and he swore to God that the only person he sent the images to was Zeke. He went on to say that Crystal knew nothing about the picture or video, and that he found Zeke on Instagram after looking at my profile. I asked him to send me the video, but he refused. saying he was going to delete both the video and picture off his phone and off his cloud right then with me on the phone. I told him to send me a screenshot confirming this, which he did. He also sent me a text message apologizing and again saying he deleted the media. I responded with a text saying if I found out that he still had the images, that I would file a police report and press charges against him. He called me back and swore that he had done so and again apologized. While I was not happy about the situation, I felt so much better and somewhat relieved after talking to him. So there I was, expecting to be engaged sometime that summer, and instead I was all alone due to a stupid lapse in judgment. During June and July, I tried everything to get Zeke back, or at least talk to me, but he never responded. I was in a complete depression. Thankfully, during this time, I was able to land a job at a company I wanted to work at. This kept me going and helped me get through. I had reached a point when I had all but given up on trying to contact Zeke, but then I decided to call him on his birthday. I wanted to be the first person to wish him a happy birthday, so I called him at 12:01 a.m., and to my surprise, he answered. I wished him a happy birthday, and we talked for nearly 2 hours. I begged him for another chance or even for just one final time together for closure. He explained to me that there's no chance for us as a couple, but to my surprise, said he would be interested in getting together one final time. So old Zeke wanted to get a little bit here. He said he missed my body, but made it clear we would only have to do it for pleasure and nothing more. I was all right with this as I thought it was a good first step. Zeke then asked if I'd been tested and asked me to send him the results, which I did. He then told me to come to his apartment Sunday evening at 6 p.m. He said I should not pack a bag as I couldn't stay over, but we could spend a few hours together. I went and we had a wonderful time. It was both beautiful and passionate, just like we used to be, actually even better. Before leaving, I told him to call me whenever he wanted, and I would drop everything and be there ASAP. So that's what I've done. Over the past 3 months, we've gotten together 7 times, mostly on Sunday evening, but one time on a Tuesday when he had the day off. I thoroughly enjoy each time we've been together. I think it's because I love him so much, combined with the fact that no one knows we're seeing each other except he and I, which makes it feel like we're sneaking around. He's made it clear that he's seeing other women, and I know he is as I've seen pictures of him out with women on his Facebook and Instagram. He's explained to me that he'll never again take me on a date and to not expect anything more than we have today. So he's telling her right there, hey, I'm not even going to take you out on a date. All you're going to do is when I want it, you can come over and we can hook up and then you're going to leave. And that's it. Don't expect anything more. Hearing this hurt me, but I kept going back. Now listen to this. Before each of our get-togethers, he makes me send him a text asking him if I can come over to have S with him. Like a fool, I do it every time. One day I forgot to, and he wouldn't let me in his apartment until I sent him the stupid text. He said he does this to protect himself in case I try to falsely accuse him of something, which is ridiculous. This brings me to my dilemma. On one hand, I know I'm just being used, but on the other hand, I still have that connection to him and thus still have a chance. Ladies, what would you do if you were me? Have any of you been in this type of relationship and how has it worked out? For the guys out there, I'd like to hear from you as to whether you think Zeke is just playing me or if by him letting me back in his life, even for just physical contact, is a sign he wants me back. Thanks for reading my story, Zoe. So that's her original post. And now we're going to take a look at a few comments she got back from the community. But before we do that, I want to remind you, if you're liking what you hear, hit that like button right now. That will ensure this video gets seen by people all over the planet. Now, let's take a look at some of those responses. The first one's from a guy. He says, "Let me say you are a vile and disgusting person for what you did, and you deserve everything you're getting now. With that said, for your sake and for his, I think you should stop seeing him and go your separate ways. A real man will never forgive a cheating woman. He may keep you around a while for pleasure, but eventually he's going to dump you. Is that what you want?" The next response is from a woman. She says, "He's using you. Can't you see that? Yes, you made a terrible mistake, but it's time he gets over it now and either accepts you or moves on. What he's doing now is a male version of monkey branching. He's just keeping you around to fill holes in his dating schedule. But one day he's going to find a woman he wants to settle down with and give you the boot. Get rid of him," she says. The next response is also from a woman. She says, "This guy sounds like a psycho and is definitely toxic." Okay, here we go. He actually makes you send an email asking him for S before he lets you in. That's insane. Stop doing that. Even if he stays with you, he's going to keep throwing your mistake up in your face. Do you want to live the rest of your life like that? Take this as a lesson learned and go out and find a guy who will love you for who you are. And we've got another response here from a woman. She says, "Stop giving yourself to him and getting nothing in return." See, it's all about transactions for a lot of these women. You need to be getting something back from him. She says, "He's treating you like a common S worker without getting paid for it. You're worth so much more. Unless this guy knocks your socks off in bed, what are you getting out of the current arrangement? You could be putting all that effort into finding a great guy who will treat you like the queen you are. Good luck and keep us posted." And then finally, we've got another response from a guy. He says, "I think you did more with Glenn than what you've disclosed here. And I think you remember every detail because it was always your plan." I have to agree with this guy. When I read this story for the first time, I said, is that all she did was give him a... I think she did a hell of a lot more. He didn't just drop by that night. I think you invited him over. That's okay because as women, you control your body. Well, guess what? We men control who we get into relationships with. And if we don't see you as relationship material, that's our choice. And that's true. So remember that, guys. They control their bodies, but we control the status of the relationship. Now, we're going to go through the updates that she has, and the first one was from just 3 weeks after her original post. She says, "I'm back to give a quick update. Against the advice that most of you provided me, I've decided to continue to see Zeke whenever he'll let me. I know I'm probably crazy for doing so, but I'm just not ready to give up on us yet. As a bit of good news, last weekend, instead of just wanting to see me on Sunday evening, he asked me to come over Saturday night too and stay over Saturday and Sunday night. I couldn't believe it and was so excited. It was like a honeymoon of sorts since it rained all weekend and we ended up staying in bed most of the time. And so that's what I've got to share for now. Thanks again for the kind words and encouragement you've provided me. While I did get a lot of crude comments and hate from some low-life, or should I say no-life guys, most of the responses I received were very thoughtful, even those who said things I really didn't want to hear. I don't plan to update again, as I'm just going to concentrate on building my relationship with Zeke. Thanks again and be well, Zoe. Well, she doesn't end there like she said she wasn't going to update anymore, because she comes back with a final update, and she does this 4 months after that last post. She says, I wanted to come back with a quick update to let everyone know how things ended up for Zeke and I. I'm no longer seeing him. If you recall in my last post, I thought we were making progress. But then, after I spent an entire weekend with him, he basically just ghosted me for the next month. I called and asked if I could come over, and he kept making excuses, saying that he had family things to do or that he had a work project and didn't have any free time. As it turns out, he was spending time with another woman. I found this out through doing some social media sleuthing. I found the girl on Instagram and saw all her posts of the two of them together. I was brokenhearted at first, but was willing to let this go, thinking now that he evened the score, we could be a couple again. Nope. The last straw was on my birthday. I expected him to at least call or text me to wish me a happy birthday, but there was nothing. I was so broken up about this that the following day I sent him a text saying I could no longer see him as it was tearing me apart. He just texted back, okay. That was 3 weeks ago, and I haven't heard from him since. I think we're really done this time. I was devastated for a week and actually had to take time off work to mourn, but now I've decided to move on with my life. This weekend, for the first time in nearly 3 years, I'm going out on a first date with a guy my cousin set me up with. He's very cute and sounds super nice. We're going out on Saturday evening to grab a drink, and we'll continue with dinner if we hit it off. Wish me luck. I want to thank all of you for your messages, which helped me get through this difficult period. You don't know how much you helped me. Take care and be well, Zoe. So that's her story. Now, I wanted to cover what I think are the morals of this story. The first one, if you live with pigs, you're bound to get dirty. And she starts living with these two wild women. Okay, let's just face it, these women were kind of off the charts wild. When you're around people like that and you're living in close proximity to them, eventually their behaviors are going to rub off on you, and look what happened to her. Number two, a relationship without boundaries is not a relationship at all. She stepped over the line, of course, with this Glenn, and this guy, I have to say, handled the situation like he should have. He cut her off right then. Where he made a mistake is he started seeing her again. Now, a lot of guys out there are going to say, hey, so what? She was just giving up the good stuff, and she was basically just like a friends with benefits type situation. What's wrong with that? Well, I'll tell you what's wrong with that, because she could have roped him back in. Number three, guys should always, or I should say, must always wear protection and use dental dams. The pleasure is not worth the risk. Look at those two roommates of hers, seeing multiple guys on a semi-regular basis, not to mention all the randos they probably took in as well. And then with her, she just hooked up with this guy out of the blue. If that Stacy didn't take the picture and the video and send it to her boyfriend, guess what? Her boyfriend would have never found out about this. And he could have hooked up with her right after. When she got to his place the following night, I guarantee she would have hooked up with him. That's why I say, guys, always wear protection. And finally, number four, don't try to repair a broken relationship. Instead, learn from your mistakes and do better the next time. That's all this woman in this story can do. Learn from her mistakes Even though I don't think what she did was a mistake, I think she planned it out, learn from her bad behavior, maybe I'll say, and move forward and do better the next time. So those are my thoughts, and now I want to hear from you. What did you think of this story? Do you think that the guy in this story, the boyfriend Zeke, handled this situation right? Or would you have done something different? Tell us about it in the comments. Also, be sure to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to this channel, and I will talk to you on the next one.